Welcome to another episode of Coconut Oil, Stardust, and Dope Vibes. I am your resident fairy godmother, Tamara Angela, and today we're just going to do a little morning tea. I've made myself a cup of black tea and honey, and just want to take some time to kind of get us caught up. We've moved through 2023, I feel like at a rapid pace. I know there were some slow points. There were some heavy points, but I think we've kind of moved through at a pretty rapid pace. I talked in the Neptune's Generation episode about coming into Neptune in Aries. That is going to be a super important time for us. That helps to really propel us towards the age of Aquarius. If you're listening to this and you're like, what on earth is she talking about? I use astrology and I break it down in a way that really makes sense. So stay tuned. Don't feel like this conversation is not for you. This conversation is for everyone. But there are synchronicities in the universe, and they allow us to have greater vision. And so I use those and I do talk about them, and I'll make sure that everybody's on the same page as we continue this conversation. So first things first, I want to use this episode as well to kind of catch up on downloads that I've had, and just for you guys to be able to use the insight to apply to your personal life, but as well use it to apply to how you operate in your community. So in your personal, like individual communities, but as well as the community overall, the sense of humanity as community. There's a lot that is changing, a lot that continues to transform, and some of these concepts I've been talking about for years, and they're actually here. Like, I've been talking about them and saying, we're going to get to this point, and we're here. At that point, like we've finally arrived. So I just wanted to kind of have this conversation to help like navigate through that, because some of it, it's like the insight comes so early. I think people naturally forget that the insight was placed there. So it's like, okay, let's kind of revisit that and remind ourselves that we discussed this and that we always knew it was coming. So now what do you do while you're here? So here's the deal. I think it was in a download from either July or November last year where I talked about the church needing to change the agenda. The church has been on, and I'm talking about like the Christian church, has been on their own personal agenda. I think Christianity has always been on its own personal agenda. It's like, hey, we have to conquer and everybody needs to be Christian. Like that is even in the Bible. So we can't dispute that. We can't dispute where that comes from. I mean, it's centuries old. It's a centuries old way of thinking, no matter and no matter the race, right? This is Christianity as a whole. It's like, if you're not Christian, gosh, I hate it for you. Like, that's kind of the way it is. It's like, you need to be saved if you're not Christian. The reality is there are people all around the world who practice their own religions and who practice religions based in love, based in peace, based in harmony, and their communities are thriving and they are wonderful people. without having to conquer and tell people to come to their religion. They're like, no, I'm good over here. And so what we see right now is the epitome of spiritual warfare. This is what we're dealing with. We're actually dealing with real spiritual warfare. There is a space where I think at some point we thought that spiritual warfare was going to be like this space of good versus evil. And I think we missed the mark with that. I think we really missed the mark with what spiritual warfare really is. It's not it's not like this good entity versus this demonic spirit. It's not that. It is the fight for what's right, the fight for prevailing peace, and the fight for things like integrity and kindness and humanity, the fight for love. That's really what it is. And we have given it a personification of, we've personified what evil is and said evil looks like this and we have to fight it. And that's not really how I see it or how it's been given to me. There are these, because what confuses people is the fact that some things that are some entities, and I'm going to call them entities because however they manifest, do they manifest as an idea? Does it manifest as a human? Evil can personify in different forms. Sometimes things that are perceived, entities that are perceived as evil, like there's a piece of good and people want to extract that and then lean towards that. And so there's never this clear delineation where good is all good and bad is all bad. It never works like that. Even though that's the BS that you've been given, right? And so people typically don't recognize these maleficent entities because there's a little string of something in there that, you know, they can identify with, or their own inherent evil, not good, can identify with that evil entity. So for instance, like your own petty recognizes the petty in that entity over there, and you're like, but I can understand why they did that. Meanwhile, that's a whole evil entity, right? So there's these, nothing is clearly black and white. Nothing is clearly like, oh, this is all good and this is all bad. Like, this is not a Disney movie. And I would say that over and over again. This is not a Disney movie where it's easy to identify, right? And so this is where discernment has to come in. This is where I've been teaching intuition all this time. Like, how do you get tuned in? I wasn't given that task of teaching intuition just for your own personal gain. It was like all of us have this space in spiritual warfare. Like, we all have this thing that we're supposed to do where spiritual warfare is concerned. All of us. There's not just like one person, one or two warriors who are supposed to go out. There are certain people who are designed to be warriors on the front line, but there's also like back office people. There's also your prayer warriors. Like, everybody has a space, and we all have something to do to help change this tide. But if you keep thinking that you're not worthy or that you're not supposed to be helping and that it's somebody else's issue, then nothing gets changed, nothing gets moved. So spiritual warfare to me is this fight for bringing things back to love and bringing things back to peace and bringing things back to harmony. That's how people get to like, oh, we have to bring back divine feminine, and then they're thinking that that has to do with women partially. I mean, because divine feminine, divine masculine, once again, they are not gender roles. It's not man and woman. It's not. And we've got, like, you've got to get that out of your head. That programming is incorrect. Are women and goddess work and oracle work and things like that, yes, we are reclaiming that because it was taken. It was taken by men, and that way men could be clergy and have ultimate power, right? And could direct things, because power put things out of balance. And so, yes, that piece has to do with gender, but the rest of it doesn't have to do with gender. We're coming back to the foundation of what love is, and that's how humans were designed to live, right? This is where we were designed to be. So that spiritual warfare that we are in right now, there's a lot of fleshing things out. There's a lot of purging. There's a lot of getting rid of illusions. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot, like I said, for instance, the idea that divine feminine and divine masculine has gender. Like, divine masculine can only be a man and divine feminine can only be a woman, and then we're going to talk about it as if they're opposites. It's not. It's complementary energy. It's synergy. This is how you end up with those crazy battle of the sexes conversations, because you think that it's opposition. We've never been in. It's not opposition. It became opposition because somebody wanted power and somebody wanted to conquer. And so then that fight ensued there. But the fight was never about divine feminine or divine masculine. The fight was always about power. And there's power in divine masculine and there's power in divine feminine. So it was never about that. It's always about coming back to, like, us bringing it back to love. The shift of the focus became power instead of love, and not understanding that there is power in love. But people have been in a state of power for so long. The idea of love prevailing is scary. It feels unsettling. And it feels like a state of weakness to people. And so we've got to kind of get rid of that illusion as well. So we are in this state of spiritual warfare that part of getting rid of that illusion is that spiritual warfare, like I said, is going to be like this ongoing fight against this evil entity. Not realizing that all of us possess a little bit of that ourselves. There's pure evil that is out there. It really is. But on a lower level, all of us possess a little bit of that. And so it's been hard to fight evil when evil presents itself and you recognize a little piece of yourself in there. It's been difficult for people. It's been highly difficult. A lot of the changes that need to be made are on an individual level. We need to, the transformation needs to be on an individual level first. It's been hard for people to grasp that because groupthink. We have dumbed our brains down. The power in our state of being and our essence has been dumbed down to feel like we have to mesh everything together. It even comes out in those gender wars where it's like, oh, I have to get, like, there's this space where it's like, oh, we have to get rid of this gender, or we all have to morph into this, or everybody. No, there's a space where it's okay to label something what it is. You can label this, and this can be labeled this, like, and everything can coexist. But we've gotten to this space where everything looks alike. All the girls on Instagram, they all look alike. All the music sounds alike. There was a time in music where you had to be individual. Like, you had to come out as something different. Because if it sounded the same, like, there was a period in like 90s R&B where, like, you could tell who the producer was. And the song was about the producer, not really about the artist. Like, those producers would just get random people to sing these songs. But it's like, yeah, that group is cute, but we know that that's Babyface and L.A. Reid. Because it's got a sound. They just found that's cute. We know that's Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. They just found people to sing their songs, but the music, you know what I mean? The music was the music. And so there's come this time right now where there's no individuality. Algorithms don't support you being individual. They want everybody to use the same song. That's how stuff goes viral. There's some dumb stuff going viral and getting attention because they used a song that boosts the algorithms. And some of those posts even say that. They're like, use this song and people will see your work. Meanwhile, the song is a gospel song and it has nothing to do with the twerking that you're doing. And the people who put the song on there don't even know that that's an old school gospel song. I think it was like the Clark sisters at one point. This stuff was going viral and people were doing the most ridiculous things to the song, but it was viral. And I'm looking at that. I'm like, I know them white folks don't know who the hell the Clark sisters are. I know they don't. They just, it's a viral song. So they just put it on there. Like, they have no clue. No clue. But the internet told you to do it, so do it. That's killing us. Like, figuratively and literally. It's killing us. Everybody does this. Like, it's okay. Oh, somebody was doing ASMR. Oh, wow, she's making money. I can do that too. And then all of a sudden, here's everybody on there. I want some of that money. What are you supposed to be doing? Transformation is going to flesh where we're going transformatively. It's going to flesh a lot of that out. Those people still aren't doing ASMR online. That stuff has been out for a really long time. Really long time. It's been out for a really long time. And then all of a sudden somebody went viral and then people were like, oh, I could do this. I mean, you kind of could, but is that what you're supposed to do? Like, is that what that person went viral because they were doing them? Why are you trying to go viral doing them? Because the way we've been programmed says that you have to do what somebody else is doing in order to be seen. You have to think what everybody else is thinking. If you're not part of groupthink, then there's cancel culture. That's crazy. Who's creating? There are things that definitely have to be changed. And things that elevate because we have different technology. Human nature, the human species is evolving and adapting. Part of what we're evolving into is not good. It's not good. I just read a thing the other day that said the median IQ has dropped because there's literally parts of our brain that we don't use anymore because of evolution. And so like people just literally aren't as smart. They're just not. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing because we still need that. We still need critical thinking and things like that, like reasoning. All of it's at an all-time low. All-time low. And this is research driven. Like you can even look that up. It's at an all-time low. Comprehension, all-time low. People are literally not using their brains. And so it makes me wonder, like, where are people at? Are they tapped in? Like, are you present at all? I've been doing different events or like being parts of different groups, and it's interesting to connect with these different age groups because the way that they think and experience the world is totally different because my world at that age didn't involve this level of connectivity. And I've had some recent conversations where the younger age groups, I'm talking like mid-20s and stuff, like they recognize, they're like, oh, okay, like, what is it like for you? Because my experience is this and your experience is that. And I know that you know, like I'm used to things being so connected. What is that like for you? Because they recognize that at my age group, we live one foot in and one foot out. Like we know what it's like not to be always connected, but now we live always connected, right? And so our brains in my age group have the ability to reason in a little bit of a different way because we actually can recall what it's like not to be connected all the way. The brains have changed and morphed and evolved into living in a space where things are always connected. And so there's certain things that they don't think about. I give this example all the time. Like I come from, we would go on car trips and my grandfather always had a map in the glove compartment. You had to know how to read a map. You had to know longitude, latitude. You called ahead and said like, hey, I'm coming. And somebody would be like, oh, here's these landmarks. Make sure when you go here, you do this, 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 this. And now with GPS, I have people literally come into my apartment complex and get angry with me because Google Maps defaults them to an apartment in the back where I don't live. But I've put notes in there that say, hey, here's the real thing when you get in here. And I'm going to make it easy for you so you don't even drive to the back because I'm in the front. The notes are already in my Uber Eats and my Instacart. And then when I see the driver is coming, I just have it copied and pasted in my phone. I just copy it and paste it in the chat. When I tell you 40% of the people follow it to the T and they're like, oh, thank God, this is great. You gave great instructions. Thank you. The remaining 60% don't even read. They don't read it. And I've even had a certain percentage call and I try to guide them back front and they're just frazzled. Well, the GPS says, okay, the GPS is wrong. It's tuned wrong. I know where I live. Can you just come follow? And just like I'm giving you step by step. And they don't know what to do because they're tethered to this device. And I'm like, but I'm trying to give you the actual answer. You don't want it. You want something else to give it to you. I even saw this in my exercise class the other day. It's kind of interesting to me. So I've been taking classes with my membership and absolutely enjoying them. What is interesting to me is there's so many different types of people that show up. And I love seeing the older women in there. I love it. So, what I've seen is that, like, there's some people who come in and you have an instructor right in the front. And I've mostly been doing yoga. So yoga classes can get quite vigorous, but with yoga classes, they always tell you there's no wrong way to do something. I'm going to give you, like, the pose is always a suggestion. You can modify it how you need to based on what your body needs. Yoga is an intentional practice. It is a practice for yourself. So even though you're there with other people, it's about you and your practice and what you came to receive that day and what you need to leave on the mat. So if your body is like, nope, we can't extend there, then you just don't do it, right? And so in class the other day, it was quite full. And some of us were making the modifications. And I remember just kind of looking around because I glanced up at the clock in the back because I was trying to push through, child. It was like a lot. So I saw some people looking around and they were looking at the other people trying to adjust versus the other people. Meanwhile, the instructor is like, hey, if you're in this pose and you can't do this, try this. Or if you're in this pose and this isn't working, here's a resting something that you could do. And what I noticed is that people were looking around. They weren't listening to what the instructor said. They were like, I need to be where all these other people are. Let me do this. And I literally saw a couple people try to correct and adjust based on what they saw other people doing. And it still didn't work. Meanwhile, the instructor's like, hey, try this, because if you can't do this, the body usually will be able to do this. The person who knows the thing, like, they didn't want to listen. They were just like, no, I got to do what everybody else is doing, which totally defeats the purpose of the intentionality and individuality of yoga practice. But it speaks to our mindsets now. It really speaks to our mindsets. That goes back to some of the illusion and things like that need to be fleshed out as well. One of the other things that we're going to see a lot of, and this also speaks to transformation, is people walking in their gifts and like the warriors emerging. And I'm not even gonna say the warriors, just the warriors, but they're coming out to, because that Neptune and Aries generation is gonna be born. But we're also talking our master teachers. There's gonna be more light on them, because as these illusions get fleshed out, and spirituality becomes less trendy, people are going to fall away. The people who've been playing around are going to fall away. So you're going to have left the people who've actually been called to do this. What I find interesting is the people who are renouncing all of this stuff and saying, I'm doing it in the name of Christianity because it was never right. Are you really? Or like, maybe you're just not loyal to anything and you're still following a trend. Because yes, there are spaces where some of us don't use our discernment and we get into a whole hell of a lot of stuff. Those things happen for sure. But also at the same time, when are we going to start walking fully in our intuition and our divine guidance and knowledge, so we don't wrap ourselves up in things that don't serve us in the first place? Things, relationships, friendships, like all of that. this is where the master teachers are going to emerge, and you're going to actually see them on full stage because God needs to use them. God needs people to hear and receive way better than we have. That's part of the spiritual warfare as well. But this whole idea of people just saying, oh, well, I've been working with astrology and tarot all this long, and now it's the devil. Well, if you never thought it was the devil in the first place, where did you, like, that is such a flip, right? And people do what they want to do. And I'm not going to debate it. But how is it that deep of a flip? If it was always demonic, what attracted you to it? And why do you think that this other side of things is not demonic? Why do you think that that flip in your reasoning isn't part of the issue? Because part of what inherent evil does is it creates confusion. It creates confusion and disillusion. That's a real thing. And so maybe it's not the tarot that's the problem. Maybe the problem is that you're still being filtrated by evil because of confusion. So you're just literally going to go over to the church and be just as confused. Really? I mean, that's what happens. And this is part of where spiritual warfare is trying to flesh a lot of this stuff out. There's always been snake oil salesmen. Always. We go back to the Bible. Like I said, it's a struggle for power. So if somebody sees that somebody's getting power based on one thing, then they're going to want, it's like, oh, I want people to look at me like that. I want that money or whatever. And so they're going to covet that. They're going to covet that and want to do that. And so I'm still not sure that people are truly walking in what their gift is. People are living in this state of confusion and then saying God called them to another side. I mean, how were you walking that walk and God was calling you the whole time? Like, it's just, some of this stuff doesn't make sense. It's peopling in public. It's really what it is. So part of the spiritual warfare is that you have a sense of discernment so you can sidestep some stuff and be like, that's not my conversation. I see things now and I don't necessarily join the conversation. I just be like, that's not for me to discuss. It ain't really my conversation. Let people have what they have. It's like, it's whatever. That's not really for me to join in. Let them have their thing. I see it, I speak to it, and then we move on because there are parts of things that I receive and that I'm supposed to speak to, and then we move on from it. I plant it here. You guys do it. It waters and nurtures wherever it needs to. So coming into wrapping up the end of the year, this has been a year of a lot of realization, a lot of transformation, a lot of deep changes, because things just can't continue at the rate that they're going. Lots of things need to change. Things need to be different. We need to be more tuned into the self. We need to be more focused on the self. We need to be more unapologetically, because if you're focused on yourself, then you enrich yourself and then you are a better addition to the community around you. And it's a ripple effect. Like if everybody was doing that, there's strength in the numbers of that, and that equals power. And so as we're moving forward, we want to pay more attention to people who can tell us what to do versus what not to do. We want to use our discernment to tap into light. If you've never understood what light is, actually, I'm not sure that people can't understand what light is. I think it's a soul level thing, because all souls should be be able to understand what light is. I think programming has made you skeptical of light because power shifts and things like that want you to stay where you can't see or you can't understand things or whatever. And so when you see things like light, love, there's an aversion to it. And people dealing in semantics. Those semantics are confusion. Those semantics, when people break things down and over intellectualize things to try to make a point as if they're teaching, that's confusion. That's a level of confusion. When somebody is a master teacher, when they are appointed and divine, the way that they're supposed to serve stuff to you is straightforward and palatable. You should walk away from that situation highly changed and changed long term. Long term. Not just this spark of something that gets you high and then you got to go back for more. There should be long-term change. You shouldn't have to sit with, listen, people come to me and they don't come for readings all the time. The people who come for readings all the time just have an addiction issue. And I'd be like, nah, like I'm giving you this info. Like, have you gone to live so you can like apply it? Like, why are you here all the time? If you're here all the time, that means you're not listening and you're just over here getting addicted and high off the light. I have folks that have spoken to me once or twice, got what they needed, the light was turned on, and they went on about their business and they do what they do and they just check in from time to time. Some people come to me because they're on a very specific journey and they need guidance on that very specific part of their journey. And then we turn them loose and then it's like they're moving and then they come back. It's like, okay, I cleared that part of my life. I'm on this part of my journey. That makes sense. But I just see a lot of people out here teaching based on semantics and over intellectualizing, and it's confusion. It's just creating confusion. It's not actually divine teaching. And discernment has to flesh that out as well. Because I mean, everybody's got a platform, so everybody's talking. And it's crowded the airwaves and made it really difficult for people to discern. Along with the fact that most people's lights are turned out anyway, as far as intuition is concerned, because you've been told that it's demonic, and nobody, like people aren't really living in that space anymore because they're not as connected to the universe and the earth. So intuitively, they don't feel things out because technology just tells you how to think, right? And so it's been difficult for humans, as a whole. I'm going to keep coming back to the podcast to have these conversations to help, give you the insight. Some of these episodes are like, hey, do you see this? Here's the insight. And some of them have kind of solution. Okay, this is what we're being asked to do. This is where we're being guided. Partially with what I do and how I'm being taught to teach is that certain things are karma driven as well. And so, I'm not giving everything. I'm not giving all the insight. I'm giving what I'm told to give. And then it's like karma, we have to make choices as humans. We're always given that choice. Like some of it's like insights like, hey, we're really supposed to be over here, y'all. Now, if you choose to go, we really supposed to be over here on the northeast side of things. Now, if you know that the Southwest exists and that's where you want to be, go ahead and do that. But we're really supposed to be Northeast. However long it takes you to come from Southwest to Northeast, that's on you. That's on you. However many people decide to come Northeast. If you never decide to travel Northeast and you stay Northwest, Southeast, you stay in another demographic, another geographical location, that's on you. Where we're being guided is Northeast, and that's the journey. How long you take to get there, if you ever get there, that's the karma. That's the journey. And that's what life looks like. How do you know that Northeast is it? Because there are certain people who are divinely appointed to tell you that. And so discernment allows you to see light and actually trust it. Because you have developed a relationship with your divine spiritual team where you trust what your angels and your guides say. And so if they've led you to a person who is like, hey, this is what we're supposed to do and we're going Northeast, then you trust that because you trust God. And then kind of like the receipts of it all is that typically those of us who are appointed, like we're all speaking in our individual slices of the earth and everybody's saying the same thing, but we don't know each other. It's like, we don't like, so you'll get the same messages. It's like, oh, all these people over here are talking about this. But this is also where you have to understand light as well. And you have to understand love and not have an aversion to it. So spiritual warfare is real. We'll be back on some subsequent episodes. I've been quiet this year because I haven't been asked to talk in this way. So I only come to do it when it's necessary. So I hope you guys share the podcast episode. Use it to talk in your own communities. Message me if there's anything specific that resonated. And ladies who are listening to the podcast, please join my Patreon. We have more in-depth conversation there as well. I've kept it women only. I'm still trying to figure out how to integrate and maybe have a more co-ed space for certain things, but Patreon is patreon.com, Love and Fairy Magic. I'm here for shadow work for anybody who is open, especially towards the end of the year and wants to do any just personal development and growth. And then I'm also open for 2024 readings. And so if you need to book that, make sure that you message me 3L Love Light Lucid, LUCID at gmail.com. So you can book your spread for 2024 so you can have the insight on what is to come for you in the year ahead. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you go back in the archives, listen to some of the older episodes, and make sure that you save this podcast as one of your favorites so when new episodes come up, you'll get notified.